So I'm Lacey, I'm George here. I'll be running the meeting. I have 5 people, 5 people. So we want to know names if you want to have. Okay, so I have Natalie, and she's not here. Okay, Melissa Bowles, Samantha O'Brien, and then Jennifer Davis. Okay, so they really want to have a just for the agenda, and we've got a certain order through the agenda. When we get to public comment, I'll ask you guys to introduce yourselves. Procedure is 30 minutes. It's going to be like 1 minutes. Just for everybody that's speaking. And then with your topic, if you can stay and do work here, just because of the items, we're going to be able to have a discussion about it. And then so they will feel awkward. I was going to comment on the item, and then we'll do that. But then we'll do that. Does that make sense? We just stand there. Yeah.
But I can't log into the website. Can you log into the website? Well, let me know if you can log into the website. Yeah. See it.
I thought about that an hour ago, and hey, we're gonna do it in person. We're gonna be in person. We were never gonna think about it.
That's when you're hot. I feel like I don't know it.
The small thing.
Are you ready? Good, thank you.
Okay, are we get started? Do we have anybody online?
We have 1 person online, 2 people online.
Oh, there's Natalie. Okay. And then Kristen Anderson. I don't have her as a
No, you only have 1 person registered for online.
for online. Okay,
And that was
it's
Natalie.
Natalie.
Mhm.
I do know that other person probably. She's Jennifer Davis. No, Kristen Anderson, I know that she submitted a comment. The DHS representative. Okay, I don't have her comment. I have an email from Melissa Cole that I want to be able to read in. But there's one other, you think? Okay. Okay. All right, are we close? Are you ready?
Yeah, you're
Joel?
good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I am going to call the meeting to order, and I'm very happy to be back in person. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to Joel for getting this room set up, because this is not our normal room. And with the extra procedures of requiring virtual presence as well as in person, it was extra effort for the tech team so that we could meet in person. So that's fantastic. We have everyone present, so that's great. Why don't we stand for a pledge of allegiance and the flag right up there? Right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That was the most beautiful pledge we've said in 2 years. Anybody who's watched online, we have done it online and it's been super disjointed, so that sounded fantastic. We do have some folks that are going to speak during public comment period, so I just want to recognize that we will be able to have some time on the agenda for that. But first, we need to work through just a couple regular agenda items. Can I get a motion to approve our agenda?
I want to approve the agenda.
You?
Second that.
Second, thanks. And I just wanted to call out one thing that Debbie, Mike, and I talked about when we put together the agenda. You notice that we moved the superintendent report up a little bit further in the agenda, and that's because we've asked Mike to be able to cover some of the things that are typically what people are wanting to hear about. Like, we've been getting questions around the construction of the elementary school. Is the school going to start late? Is it going to be done on time? Those kind of things. And so what we're going to try is asking him to address some of those things so that if the public are just logging on, waiting to hear an update, they hear it further in the meeting than when last time he was buried at the end. So we'll try it. If any of you guys have feedback as we go through the year, let us know the feedback. We can move it around. So that was just the reason behind that. Okay, all right. So with that, a motion, or we've already got the motion. Let's vote to approve the agenda. Raise your hand. That is unanimous. Fantastic. Thank you. All right. So consent agenda. I need a motion for consent. I move to approve the agenda. Thank you.
Second.
Second, awesome. All in favor, raise your hands. Great, that is unanimous. All right, Mike.
Okay, you see my list of activities for the month of July and August. And I have a couple of highlights for you. One is moving to the strategic plan for continuous improvement for the district, the CIP, Continuous Improvement Plan. At our May board meeting, I informed the board of our progress with the CSD 3 to 5 year strategic plan or continuous improvement plan. And that was a strategic plan that we developed in the 1920 school year. And that was a 3 to 5 year improvement plan for increasing student achievement and student success. And I provided a progress report for you in that meeting on where we were with that plan. And at that time, we had completed all of the initiatives that were identified through the community needs assessment. That involves staff, parents, students, everyone in the community. We engaged them through community forums, surveys, listening sessions, and other meetings, both online and in person. And so with the completion of those initiatives, there's only one left, or one remaining, that was on that list of 36, I believe, or so, strategic implementations, and that's the math adoption. And so the math adoption for the state is due this next year. So they're currently researching and investigating math curriculum to bring forward for state approved adoptions. And we'll be going through that process through the next year. So that 3 to 5 year plan will be completed within the 3 year time period. So it's time for us to develop a new plan and vision to take CSD to the next level and continue moving forward and to the North Star. So I've engaged with a consultant, a strategic planning consultant, and she has agreed to work with us. And that work will begin in September. So, well, actually it begins for me earlier than that. It'll begin this month as we start the planning and timeline for the activities of that strategic planning process. But our first design team meeting for the community-wide, all the representatives from the community will be on September 28th. So that date is set in meeting. And then we've tentatively set 3 other Wednesdays. These are all on Wednesdays. The 19th of October, the 9th of November, and the 30th of November. The 30th of November is optional, depending on where our progress is, how much data we've received from the surveys and our community engagement forums and such. If we are at a point or place where our community sees our plan has developed and we're ready to move forward to start designing action plans for implementation, then and we don't need the 30th, the meeting on November 30th, then we won't go there. But if we do need that meeting to wrap it up, then she'll have it penciled in her calendar. Her name is Heidi, so that we can continue with it. Any questions on the
Can you give me
strategic
those
plan?
dates one more time?
Yeah, 9/28,
Okay.
that's the one in ink, and
Okay.
then October 19th,
Okay.
November 9th, and November 30th.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll get more information from me. I'll be putting together a recruiting notice to send out to the community and to the staff and CSD and also to the board. So that's forthcoming. Any questions on that?
How big it do we plan? I know last time we had quite a lot of participation. What are your thoughts on teachers and parents and what are our goals?
We had 40 representatives in the last design team, and we are looking for representatives from all stakeholder groups within the community. So we'll outline or develop a list of those community stakeholder groups and look for at least one representative from one. And if we get two, for example, the students, I believe we have 3 or 4 students, high school students that were on that committee. We wanted strong voice from our students, so we have 4 representatives on that design team. And then we had, I think, half a dozen observers from other districts that observed the process as we went through it. And then I know 2 of those districts followed our session and went into strategic planning as well.
Okay.
Mhm. Any other questions?
I'm assuming last time you did a great job of hosting a bilingual session for our Hispanic families. I'm assuming you're trying to do the same kind of outreach this time.
We have outreach to all of our minority groups within our community population and school population.
Thank you for doing that.
And when I speak of minority groups, I mean economic disadvantaged or families that have students with disabilities. We have our minority groups by race and ethnicity, but we reach out to, we have liaisons to reach out into our community to all avenues. Those are avenues to reach out to all community stakeholders within our demographics. Yep. Seismic plan update. Okay, the CS seismic improvement project is moving along and is on schedule. I'm informed by Rob, the project manager. I talked to him 3 weeks ago, and at that time, they were looking a little tentative about being on schedule. So he increased his crew by 1/3, and they jumped right on it. And so they have caught up and are on schedule as we speak. Their priorities for the construction were, number 1, to install all of the structural and stability improvements. So that's been accomplished. The second priority was to prepare the classrooms, interior halls, and old cafeteria by the opening day of school. So to prepare all of those areas on the interior to be ready for students to return to school. And that's where we're at. They are right now through 2/3 of the classrooms. And where we only had a 3-4 foot path through the main halls, now we're seeing floors in the hall.
Good
So
time.
yeah, it's really picking up. They've picked up a lot in the last week.
Okay.
And then the third and final phase is to finish the exterior work with replacing all the rotted wood and the insulation, and the hard plank siding and exterior paint. So they're working from the back around to the front. So they're going to finish the classrooms and the halls inside. They've been working on the outside, but they really put a large crew inside the building to make sure that it will be done and in time for our custodians and teachers to get into school to get those classrooms ready. When they broke construction and removed the rotted siding and they discovered that the building didn't have insulation in the exterior and interior walls. So when they pulled that siding off on all exterior walls, there was no insulation between the siding and the interior, the plywood on the interior wall. When they began tearing off the roof, they discovered that there was no insulation between the ceiling and the roof as well. So that whole west side of the building didn't have insulation.
Really old building. To have not met code at that point, right?
Well, what was code at that point might have been 10% insulation on the exterior, or just in areas where there was plumbing or something, I don't know, but not much anywhere. In spots there was some of it, but by and large, it was not an insulated building originally. So one would think that with the insulation in there, the new siding on there, and the new walls on the interior, sheetrock now, that we're going to see considerable savings in our electric bills from both cooling and heating the building.
Maybe some sound deafening between classrooms too.
All right, we noticed that,
Really?
yeah,
That's great.
just in the halls,
Okay.
actually walking
That's
down the hall.
interesting.
When they pulled the siding off of the upper cafeteria walls, the walls above the breezeways, they pulled the siding off and they discovered that we had windows up there in that building, on both the entire east wall and the west wall. And on the inside, they had plywood, sheets of plywood across it. So, I mean, and nobody knew that there was windows in there somewhere.
But let the light in, man.
Right in, so we can only think that logically why they did that was because of the heat that was coming in when the sun comes up in the east and settles in the west. And so what we decided to do was we wanted natural light in there, in that room, that cafeteria. So half of the windows will come back in glass.
Okay.
And the other half will be framed in, and the glass is going to have a tint to it, so it's not radiating through them. It'll be deflecting some of it, but the natural light will be in the room again.
Awesome.
So another sweet deal.
If we could only do that for our high school classrooms.
Well, if
Do we
only
have
could-
any barred up windows? Jenny, nothing?
No.
Oh, okay, all right, well, we can start.
In addition to utilizing the seismic grant funds to make these improvements, to put siding on where they are working or where they're putting more structure in to stabilize the walls and the roof and such. Well, we had to cut back on the budget because of the increased cost of materials and labor. And with that, we had to cut back on siding around the building. And the new budget only went to siding on the walls that they worked on. So it's gonna be like every other wall, or every third wall on the exterior is gonna have new siding, and the other, we're gonna have the old siding, which was rotted up to 3 feet high and through in at least half of the sections of the building. And so we talked to them and we got an estimate of about $100,000 to completely take off the old siding, the rotted siding, and put new siding around that whole west side of the building. And another $20,000 to paint it all, rather than just the sections that they worked on. And so we moved some things around within the facilities budget for deferred maintenance projects and prioritized that. And that's where we pulled the funds from to do that work. They originally have a 15% markup on their budget to cover extensive costs that they don't see once they get, like insulation. That's an additional cost that they didn't know was going to be there. But there's been some cost savings along the way too. And so some of that $120,000 we're hoping to see come back. Not really sure with them hiring a new crew. They're working 6/10s in that building. So they've been pushing hard, and I really, on the labor cost, I know they have a budget for it, but it might eat into that 15%. And or some of the additional materials like the insulation or electrical outlets and things of that nature that they didn't see until they started tearing the building apart. But all in all, we're going to have a good sound building that will stand and be safe for our kids for the next 25 years. And if it shakes and rattles, we'll have the best structure that they can provide for us.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, and it's great to hear that you're not expecting a school delay. That has been the most popular question I have gotten. Well, elementary kids start on time, so that's great. Okay, any questions for Mike before we move on? Okay, all right. So we're going to move on to the public comment part of our agenda. We do have 5 individuals registered to speak. And then I did receive one email, so I'll read that email in at the end for public comment. And our procedure is about a 3-minute time limit, just to make sure we have equitable speaking across. Marilyn, do you have your phone or should I do mine? Just to keep a brief timer. Okay. Anyone speaking, if you're still speaking at 3 minutes, we'll just give you a quick little signal to just wrap it up. It's not going to be a hard stop. We want you to finish your thought for that. So when I call your name, if you could just introduce yourself for us and then just share whatever comment that you would like, that would be great. And the folks, just so that the board knows, the same topic is what all 5 of our speakers will be speaking on, which is going to be our confidential agreement coming later. So if those folks, if you can stay, we have just a couple items in between when that agenda item shows up and public comment, then you'll be able to get to hear the board discuss, and we'll ask Mike to provide some information on that as well. So if you have a chance to stay, that would be great. All right, so our first one is Natalie, and she's going to be online. So this is a first for us, receiving public comment online. Are you there, Natalie?
You might ask. Natalie, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can.
Oh, yay. Okay.
Hi,
All of a sudden I can't see you guys though. So I don't know. Can you see me?
No, we just
Okay.
see your name.
Okay, you can hear me. I will start. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to start with I'm going to talk about the need for nursing and the importance of having regular nurses to support our children. So Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 states that no otherwise qualified individual with a disability in the United States shall solely by reason of their own disability be excluded from the participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So the reason why I read that is because I feel like some of our kids, especially the ones that receive one-on-one nursing, are being neglected in the fact that they are not able to come to school sometimes due to not having a nurse, or the nurse not being properly able to take care of these kids. So I would like to ask Mr. Johnson as well as the school board to further consider a place in the budget where funds could be found to increase the wage of the district nurses. I realize wage alone will not fix some of the discrepancies in our daughter receiving an equitable education, but we must start somewhere. For years, our daughter has been denied access to what she and every other child deserves, a free, appropriate public education. There have been times when we were told she couldn't come to school because there was no nurse available for her, or that her nurse quit because they could get paid more elsewhere with less responsibility. She was denied access because her nurse was sick, or she was sent home because the nurse was unable to meet her medical care needs. I have spent hours in the school training different nurses on how to properly care for our daughter, only to find out that that nurse I had trained will not be working with her next year. I'm not only speaking for my own daughter, but for all the district's most vulnerable children. When children don't have access to health care, a school nurse is instrumental in helping these children return to full health and in turn helping that child to return to learning, which is why we want all of our kids to go. When children with disabilities are denied access to school, they are put at risk. Many of the families that care for these children are experiencing caregiver burnout already, and they need to rely on schools to provide the necessary supports that their children qualifies for and deserves. And lastly, according to the disabilityjustice.org, children with developmental disabilities are 4 to 10 times more likely to be abused than their peers without disabilities. There have been reports that have shown the amount of abuse reports substantially down during the time when children were denied access to school, and this is all children. This concerns me. DHS relies on schools to see, evaluate, and protect our children. When children are not able to go to school, this can't be done. I encourage all of you to really consider how we can keep and sustain our nurses that we have in our district currently. We don't have very many, and we need to look out for our children's best interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Natalie, are you able to hang on for our discussion that's going to come later in the agenda?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Katie Meeks. You can do either, just be comfortable.
Okay, my name is Katie. I am a pediatric nurse. For 6 years, I was a pediatric nurse for the school district here. I did end up in January finding a new job. I get emotional. It's really
It's okay, I cry at school board meetings too.
I love my job and I loved this job. And it's literally what I went to school for. And I still get to work with children now. But I just kind of want to talk a little bit about why I had to leave and had to make that decision for me and my family. And it ties in a lot with what Natalie says too. As a nurse, I was expected to work 9+ hours a day. I didn't get breaks. I don't get lunch breaks. There were several times when I'd be like, well, what if I have to go to the bathroom? And the response was just leave them outside the bathroom at the door because we have no one to cover me. I asked for coverage. I asked for us to hire more people. And I was told, well, when we get to that bridge, we'll cover it. We'll cross it. Well, I'm here 7 years later and that bridge has never been crossed. I want to talk about how if I'm sick, which I'm a human, I'm a nurse, I get sick. There's no coverage, but I can't call out because then my patient can't come to school. But I can't come to school and be with my medically fragile children because if they catch what I have, then they could possibly die. And that's not an exaggeration. A medically fragile child who gets sick with a common cold could die. So then I'm in a hard spot. Do I come to work to be with my peers so that my patient can come be at school where she's supposed to be? Or do I stay home and take care of myself? There's no coverage for any nurse right now. I also got told that when I brought up our wages, so when I was there in January, we capped out at 26. And I brought that to the attention. I that's where other places start. Other places start at 26 and they move up for your years of experience. The school caps out at 26 when I was here. And I was told one of those reasons were because we get summer off. We get breaks for Christmas and we get Thanksgiving breaks off. So if we count that, that's 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks off. Those weeks are unpaid. We don't get paid for those weeks. We have to split our salary into 12 months if I want to get paid for those weeks. Also, I don't get a summer off. I had to work summer school every year with my patients. And it was optional for me to work summer school, but if I don't work summer school, how is my patient coming to summer school? Then, like, there's no way for her to come to summer school if I don't work summer school. So that's not really an option for me because I care about my patient. I care about the people I take care of and I want them to have exactly what every other student has in the school. So when you take off the summer school,
Yeah.
you take off summer school, that's about 8 weeks off that I get unpaid. And I was told that, like, I should be happy that I get so much time off to be with my kids during that time. My new job, I get 10 weeks paid off a year. That's more than if I wasn't doing summer school. So that can only be adjusted for an income here. If you're saying, well, you get this income because you get so much time off. Well, that's not fair. I didn't ask for that time off. I asked for summers and Christmas break off. And when you divide my $26 an hour pay by the 12 months to account for the time off that I made to take, I make $21 an hour. So in paying your nurses less and making them be burnt out because there's no coverage for them, you're putting this responsibility on them and they're not going to get a lot of nurses who want to work here. And the nurses who aren't going to be good, and that puts your patients at risk for danger. And
Thank you, Katie. All right, next one is Melissa Bialis.
Okay.
Did I
I'm
say that
Melissa.
right?
I'm one of the nurses here at the school. I work in the life coach classroom. I'm a one-on-one nurse with a sweet little boy who has a lot of complex medical needs. I work with him from the time he gets here in the morning until about 6 months to leave at the end of the day. I too, we don't get a break. We don't have a nurse to cover. We are told to bring our cell phones with us to the bathroom in case we have to come run back for our student. We don't have a scheduled food break throughout the day. And I'm telling you this because the duties and responsibilities of our position are unlike any other school district in the area as well as in the state. Not too far off from what we encounter in a hospital. We are nurses, after all, and are known for our strong bladders and ability to work hungry while possibly covered in body fluids, having our own. I was told in June that we were going to have a salary review. And if we felt like we were being paid below fair market value, that we needed to find 5 districts in the area that employ nurses and what their job duties are and what their wages were. I quickly learned that that was an impossible task. There are no districts in the area that employ nurses with job descriptions like ours. So I was allowed to expand my search as well as use non-school facilities to come up with the information. I spent countless hours researching, calling, emailing, and getting that information together in order to see our case on behalf of all of the nurses in the district. The closest thing that I found was Springfield. They have decided to hire their own nurses this year. I spoke with the director of special services. She wanted to pick my brain as well, wanted to know how we utilize LPNs in school. I told her and she was blown away. They pay more than us and their job duties are much less. There's much less on their plate. They have a full-time RN. The 4J school district, which was, another district. I spoke with Mike earlier today, and he said the two districts that he looked at, because he too had trouble finding districts that, do what we do, were 4J and Springfield. Both use the nurses differently. One of them has multiple RNs. We don't have a full-time RN, on staff currently. So currently at 4J and also at Springfield, they use their LPN for focused jobs. So they have one that does just diabetic care, one that does chronic disease. There's one I think that helps out in the health room. They have an RN that runs the health room. Currently, we have an LPN running the health room, also doing diabetic care, also doing chronic disease management in the building. And then our RN does the chronic disease management, IEPs, training remotely. And then for us, one-on-one nurses, we have a full day with our student, and then if our student isn't there, we then work in the health room. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is the sick time that Katie kind of mentioned. This year was especially hard with COVID. I know most of us ended up getting COVID at one point. That meant our student would be missing the entire 6 days. That COVID time came out of our sick time, which then I lost all of my sick time. So any time after that was unpaid. And then you do have that guilt that if you are not feeling well, do you come in so your students can come in? You know, making your students stay home is not only a big deal for them, also their parent who has that only part of the day where they can schedule meetings, appointments, anything that they might need to do. That's their only opportunity. And if you fall out, then they are scrambling to schedule meetings and appointments and doctor's office, you know, that kind of stuff. So I asked that the board take our work, hard work, dedication to our job in mind and deciding to approve our salary schedule presented today. And furthermore, I ask that you take into account the proposal written by Ms. Manzone that was presented to us into account.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Samantha O'Brien.
Hi.
Hi.
I am Samantha, and I am privileged enough to have these incredible nurses who have taken care of my childhood resign from the district. So I am speaking in support for wage scale increase for the LPN staff. CSD. These nurses serve my child who's medically complex and have multiple interventions throughout the day. He's supported by a one-on-one nurse, Melissa, his nurse. Last year, he missed approximately 45 days of school due to no staffing. 45 days of school. There are some days I've been called 10 minutes before the bus would arrive, but we did not attend school because there was no nurse available. Creswell has a high acuity of very complex and medically fragile children, as you guys are aware. That is in part, which this may be new information, due to the fact that there's only 16 licensed developmental disabilities children's foster care homes in all of Wayne County. 16 of us who take these really high needs kids. Natalie is one of them. I'm one of them. 8 of those families reside in the Creswell School District. Our acuity is high. You know, we support the most underserved children who require intensive medical care, who have experienced significant trauma and neglect, as well as abuse. Every 6 months, as a foster provider who cares for these children, I am required to report to the court of what's going on with these. The scrutiny is pretty significant because these children are at such high risk of, you know, complications to their care. I just had a court review with the judge in June, and one of their main questions is they asked about the school. How are the supports? Is he able to go to school? You know, and this is somebody who's represented by their own attorney and the Department of Justice. The judge was not happy in June. So he has another case with me in November. I'm a nurse myself. Last year, I was actually contacted by a nursing agency to fill a vacancy within the school district. It was offering PTO, 401k, full benefits, medical, dental. The hourly rate was very, very competitive. It was $38 an hour for a year-long contract. That was maddening to me. Because if our district would invest in our own nurses, they wouldn't be paying this contract agency to cover and fill the gap and put a Band-Aid on, when if we could just pay appropriately. With that said, it was a competitive wage because the position was for a client who was independent and had a trade. So to find an LPN with experience with pediatrics who have both and trade experience is not common. Even in the hospital, registered nurses do not provide ventilator or trach care. That's a specific job by a respiratory therapist. Our LPNs are doing that on a daily basis. They're bagging children when they can't breathe at school. You know, it's the nursing professionals are in time demand and short supply currently. That's just how it is. Our fabulous and dedicated nurses at CVS are working in a very demanding environment without the typical hour support that other medical facilities provide. Without adequate nurse wages, our district is unable to retain and hire any nursing staff. If the district is not willing to invest in and retain quality nursing staff, it poses a great danger to not only my child, but exposes the district to other people. Our district is one of the only districts looking to utilize LPNs, like Melissa said, for one-on-one students. This is because of the acuity of medical need. These nurses are not simply treating a straight knee or a tummy ache. They're managing brittle diabetics, neurological monitoring, catheterizations every 2 hours, aspirations, and bagging students when they're unable to breathe, and suction trachs. They're replacing feeding tubes in their school buildings. And they're also managing central lines that go into the heart. I'm here to make the board aware of the significant impact these nurses have on serving the children in our district, and how the current wage scale is not meeting the experience and skill set required to support our kids. I want my child to be able to go to school on a normal basis with his peers, with a quality nurse who is paid appropriately for their job duties. And I don't think that's too much to ask. I just want the board to be aware that this is significantly impacting our students. And especially with COVID now, if a nurse has an exposure, they're out for 6 days. If their child, you know, breaks their leg, they can't, there's no backup coverage. And there's no contingency plan in place. From what I've gathered, I've asked several times, what is the plan? Nobody has any information. You know, and our school district is billing Medicaid to support these children. And one question I have is the Medicaid reimbursement. I get it's not dollar for dollar, but is that funding going back into the general fund, or is that going back into our nursing services? Because if we are not utilizing that to support our high acuity kids, who my child is going to be in this district for 11 more years, this is not going away. And I get calls frequently to take other children because I'm leaving a nurse myself. And I always consider, like, oh, here's another issue. We're not going to have a nurse. Melissa Bialis is leaving the district after this year. And we have a year to go. And I'm worried about finding a replacement for my child who's nonverbal and can not communicate their medical needs. So this is a urgency to me that we have something in place, because right now we have, to my knowledge, there's 4 nurses. We now do not have an on-site district nurse. There's no per diem nurses. And to my knowledge, last year, they did interview several candidates who were great and had really good experience. And they turned down the job because the wages, starting wage that Creswell's paying is like $9 less an hour than everywhere else in the country. So we're in a bit of a crisis here, and I don't, it bothers me as a parent because I don't feel the urgency from, the school point of view. Like, oh, it's all right, your kid's disabled, he can't talk, he doesn't need to go to school. That's how it makes me feel as a parent. So thank you for letting me go.
Yeah, thank you, Samantha. All right, we have one more. Is Jennifer Davis here? Oh, I'm here. Okay. Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
It's really weird. My Zoom, you guys are super duper tiny, so I hope you guys can hear me okay.
We hear you great.
Okay, awesome. As a life skills teacher, I wanted to show my support for all the LPNs and all the amazing nurses that support our most complex students. And so I feel like everybody who's spoken before me has given a very accurate picture to the discrepancy of how much responsibility they're being given on a daily basis to the pay that they're being compensated. So as someone who sees all these dedicated individuals on the front line, they really are dedicated, and it's a hard decision when they are being shown that other places of employment can give them the compensation to help them have a fair wage and to support their families. They develop amazing relationships with their students and know them so well. I think what resonated with me is the parents speaking about how much they have trained and invested their own time to train individuals that may not continue because wage is a factor. So I would just like to see the school board really listen to these stories and recognize that individuals want to stay, but they also need to be able to support their family and have a reasonable living. And so I just wanted to show my support and also say that I too saw that they go without breaks. They push themselves beyond what they should be asked to do because they do want these students to be able to come as they are entitled to come each and every day to school. And not having a nurse or having a nurse that's not properly trained is just really not an option and shouldn't be something that the school tolerates. Yeah, again, I've just seen these incredible individuals step up every single year. And we've lost a couple of incredible individuals because of the wages. So I hope that all of these stories that have been shared tonight will prompt and cause a call to action to the board to really take a serious look at this.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. If you can stay on and keep watching, I don't know if you've seen the agenda online, but we are discussing the confidential agreement in just a few agenda items. So if you can hang on a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. All right, and I've got to log back in. There's an email that was sent to the board. I want to be able to read that in for the record, because if you guys hadn't seen it in an email, then you wouldn't be able to take advantage of that. Comments, and I'll find it. All right, it is from Melissa Cole, who's a registered nurse. Dear Sir or Madam, I am speaking in support of a wage increase for the contract LPNs that serve the Creswell School District with special needs students. These nurses serve a medically fragile population that otherwise would not be able to attend and fully engage in the quality education that the Creswell School District provides. The current wage structure for these nurses is well below the national and state average. This is a profession that is in high demand and in short supply. The nurses that work in our school district work in a very specialized atmosphere outside of standard nursing facilities. This adds another layer to the job they do, which oftentimes occurs in challenging situations. Retaining quality nurses who have experience with students should be a top priority of the school board. It is my strong belief that if we, in parentheses CSD, does not have a strong group of quality nurses, The risk for litigation is vastly higher. I would never want our students to be cared for by the lowest paid, in parentheses, lowest valued care provider. Respectfully, Melissa L. Cole, registered nurse, district RN for 5.5 years. So this was received, I know Marilyn has it for our minutes. If anybody else wants it, Marilyn can send that out to the board after the fact, but I wanted to make sure everybody heard what she had said for public comment. Okay. All right, so we need to continue in our agenda in order. This is the awkward part of Robert's Rules of Order. So we have just a few items and then we will be able to discuss the confidential agreement at that time. All right. We don't have any special presentations, so unfinished business. I just wanted to let the board know that our trainer that will be here to discuss board evaluation. Originally, we were hoping he would be here at this meeting. Clearly, he's not because he's not on the agenda. He had a scheduling conflict, so it's rescheduled for August 31st. So can you guys quickly look at your calendars and tell me if August 31st is a go or a no-go?
At what time?
Let's say 6. Is that possible for a majority?
I'm good.
Okay. I'm waiting for Tim's head nod when he gets there. Yeah, I think if we start at 6, we'll get out just a little bit earlier. That will be an in-person meeting. Great. Okay, all right, that's all of us. That's perfect.
That become considered a special.
It'll be a work session. Yeah, work session. Yeah, thank you. All right, we have an open position on the board. We have had it posted. We've received no applications. Nobody wants to volunteer with us. Any of you guys know anybody that wants to be on the board, please recruit.
Natalie, do you want to come back?
My preference, as long as the board is in agreement, because I want to make sure that we're moving in consensus, is we will just keep that open month to month until we get an application. So, I can just see some head nods and get consensus that that is appropriate. Okay, all right. So Marilyn, just keep that open, and guys, please recruit, speak to people that have an interest in volunteering. That would be super helpful. Okay, new business. We do need to approve a list of compensated committees. So,
Procedural question.
yes, thank
Can
you.
we vote to adjust the agenda to move this to above these other 2 items?
Yeah, I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjust the agenda.
Okay, I move to adjust the agenda to move the
The
confidential
confidential.
agreement proposal to the beginning of the new business section.
Great. Any comments or questions about that agenda change? Okay, all right, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, great. All right, so we are going to move confidential, that is number 4. We're gonna move that up to number 1. All right, so I've asked Mike to provide on all of the 3 contracts that we've had, provide a quick summary of the criteria. I know we also received an email earlier in terms of the criteria that the committee that worked with Mike and the folks looked at. Can you provide a verbal summary
Sure.
of what that looked at? And then Mike Anderson and Debbie were assisting Mike with that. So if you guys can provide any other comments around process that you feel Mike may have missed or you want to add?
Yeah, so the board did direct 2 of its members to work with me on the agreements. So I conferred with Director Anderson and Director Wilkerson. And informed them how I was going to go about analyzing the current contracts and then provide a proposal and agreement with their blessing. And so the first step that I initiated was to go out to all of the confidential members. So to assign or elect a representative that would be the liaison between the group and me. And I asked that liaison to then talk to the group and find out what they wanted in their in their new agreement. It's not a contract, it's an agreement. And so, Brianna, Manzone was the representative that they selected. And then they routed or, provided her with, their wants and desires to be considered for the new agreement. So, as the information came in, or what, the information from each of the employees within the confidential group, so one position, or one group would have one position throughout the confidential group, with the exception of the LPN, they had 4. And that was half of the total number of the group. There's actually 9 in the group, but I pulled out the transportation supervisor because there's a different nuance with that position. And I had to rework that separately from the group so that it wouldn't impact the overall percentage increase of 7% for the group overall. That's what we were trying to stay within. It was a 7% total increase across all of the confidential positions or groups within that positions within that group. So my goals was to look for a balanced approach with agreement terms, meaning we have 4 groups that we work with agreements. We have our certified, our classified, our confidential, and our administrative. And trying to get them on a staggered year for discussing or bargaining the contract. So 2 on a 3-year contract and 2 on a 2-year contract. And that was one goal. The second was to consider all the requests that came in from each of the members, so from each of the confidential group members, that of their particular position or group, to consider what they wanted to see happen or changes within their agreement. An agreement that is within the means of the district budget. So when I'm talking about that 7% overall, the total group, that's what we're looking at, which is about $100,000 for this group. A market analysis to compare positions to districts across the state with similar enrollment that have a budget like ours at Creswell. So somewhere between 900 and 1,200 students that have a budget based on per student enrollment that base it like we do with the amount that we have of revenue. Look at the salaries of the surrounding Lane County school districts because those are the immediate districts that we compete against for our employees. So to take a look and see where they're at with their salaries to make sure that we are competitive or within reach. The larger districts, of course, have larger budgets. And so it's challenging to keep up with them and what they can do when they, what they can do with compensation. We're small. And agreements with other employee groups within CSD. So what's equitable across the district is what we've looked at with other groups and the contracts that we settled on with them. So with this group, the first thing that I did with all of the positions was look at a 4% COLA to see how that would impact the current salaries in the marketplace. So I did it with all groups. With this group, when I looked at a 4% COLA, the confidential group as a whole, there was discrepancy that a 4% increase of COLA across the board would not satisfy. So we have positions that were maybe 4% out of alignment with other 2%, 2.5% out of alignment with other districts and up to 40% out of alignment with other districts. And a lot of this has happened, they talked about what's been going on over the years with this group, but a lot of it has happened with adjustments that some districts have made recently to be competitive in the market. And so we're now moving into that phase where we're trying to move into a place where we're competitive. And in that space where we can bring employees or keep employees in Creswell. We love our LPN. We love how they take care of their kids. Our kids need it. We have no interest in them going anywhere else, never have. But this is our opportunity to take a look at what's going on in the marketplace to try to secure the position or have a salary that's appealing and competitive out there with other school districts. So with this group of 4%, this particular group of LPN, the 4% would not have helped us in the marketplace. And in fact, we looked out to see what the salaries were in school districts out there for LPNs. And districts our size don't have them. They contract out to agencies, which is what I'm sure of. The agencies then subcontract to the district. But they have, a workforce that they provide for school districts. So when I looked at larger districts within Lane County, I found the two that was mentioned, that Melissa mentioned earlier, 4J and Springfield. And those are large districts. They have large budgets, but they also have kids with high needs Renaissance. And I felt that where we were at with a 4% COLA would not get us there between those two neighboring districts. And they're the only ones in Lane County that I know of that have LPN. So I took the salaries, the step one salaries of both districts, and the step 10 salaries, or the last step of their salary schedule of those districts. And we took the average between the two. And that resulted in an 8% salary increase for this group. 8% in 22-23. We also looked at the step increases for them. And some of the step increases were 1%, maybe 0.5%, maybe a 3.5%, depending on the year. It was pretty random on what they were going to get for a step increase. And that's not good. When we have looked at another group that works hourly, and we adjusted their step increase 3%. So we adjusted the LPN's step increases to 3% every year. And the other benefits were the fully loaded salary and PERS and interest in their compensation. Step one is at over $40,000. That's not a ton of money, but it does put us in that competitive market with those two larger school districts. And when we move to the metro area in Portland or those areas, we don't compete in that market. That's a different market. I don't compare any of our employee groups with the Salem or anything that's moving up above Albany. So anyway, I brought that to Director Anderson, and Director Wilkerson explained where I was in the salary schedule, the increase that I had looked at for each of the positions within the confidential group. And that's where we landed, 8% year one, 2.5% year two and year three. So over 3 years, they're getting 13% increase. if they went for the 4% COLA, which was mentioned in the email from Melissa, they would be getting an 8% increase over 2 years. The way it stands, they're getting a 10.5% increase over 2 years and a 3% step. So there's been an increase in salary within the steps to equalize 1 year to the next for each person that's working within that group. That was the process for the confidential group and the one that we're discussing.
Mike or Debbie, do you have anything other, any other comments or thoughts?
Not really. I know that Mike did a really good job of showing us some things that he went over for all of the different groups and where he got his information based on districts around us.
Mike, did you have anything? I don't mean to put you on the spot,
No,
just checking.
no, I don't have anything yet.
Okay, okay. One, besides wages, the other thing that I heard from our speakers was breaks or coverage. Is there anything on the operational side?
The
That
breaks
you
and
can add
coverage,
on
that I would have to get some information on the breaks and coverage. That didn't sound okay to me. I know that we have a 4th LPN now rather than an RN. We independently contract to the RN, which is Melissa.
Mhm.
And she oversees our LPNs and the medical care that should be for each of the children, for each of our students. And then we have an LPN that's in the office, the front office, under Melissa's supervision, distance supervision. And that LPN is a backup. Not only is she doing the needs for students who come to the office and the diabetic needs for 2 of our students, but then she is the backfill for the other LPNs when they are not available for their students. That's what we have set up as an operational system of procedure. When we're talking about what happens if one is down, well, we look to that one first, pick up that responsibility, because she is on staff and she does have kids. And then if we need to go any further than that, then we look out to the agency to contract with someone to bring them in temporarily.
Please, please. Melissa knows that we're doing Melissa, but they state
Yeah.
my nurse.
Melissa Cole.
Thank you, sorry. So I have a couple of questions. Do we have a contract with these agencies? Do we have an agreement on having backfill? Or is that something we do secondary? Call it, you know?
We know the agencies to call when we need someone, so that's who we reach out to, similar to a substitute position. Maybe a substitute position.
Are there agencies out there that you have that schools can contract with to have more consistent coverage? Right, Sam, I'm making some assumptions, big picture, this is what I heard. Is that if a nurse is, an LPN is sick and they call in, I'm assuming that it means we can't get an agency nurse, and that's why kids aren't able to go to school. Is that a valid assumption?
I have to get more information.
Okay.
To find out how often that happens versus how often we can get someone from an agency.
I think that would be important for us to know in general, because and I think there's things that we should look at to make adjustments to that, because if we're relying on someone we don't have a relationship with or contract with, there's different things that can happen when we have contracts with them, but they then have an obligation to help provide support. But if we don't have those sorts of things, that relationship is different. So that's my first thought. The break thing, I would love to hear more about that. You know, the friends natures that scares me. I don't like that. There was another, sorry, I tried to take one. I would also love to know more. I thought that was a very interesting point about we're billing for Medicare and having a better idea of where that money, how it comes in now. Just because I don't know, and I really don't have any background on that. So I would be interested in knowing more about that.
I know we do bill for Medicaid because I see that in our budget and it does come back in to reimburse, but I think, is it like 65 cents to the dollar? Am I close in memory? Yeah, it's something like that, but it does come back in to reimburse. That's something that we see every year with the budget committee as a revenue. coming. Well, the nurses are out of the general fund as well. We don't have a separate fund that pays for nursing. So the expenses are out of it and the revenue comes back into it.
Oh, sorry, one last. I think what I heard you say, I just want to make sure I understood. We looked at just the LPN wages, the LPN and the RN wages. We looked at just LPN, and we took Springfield, 4J and Springfield, and we averaged, and that's where we got our range.
So we're less than Springfield, but higher than Eugene.
Okay, and what about our RN wage?
We contract with her, so we're not, but we did make an adjustment on the salary schedule for them.
Okay, and our intention is to continue to contract. with her. Okay, one last thing. And I don't know enough about this, but scope was a question I had. I'm sure other people might. I'm just gonna leave with that. and
General-
say I have more
general
questions
question.
about scope.
Duties, right? The broad range of duties. Yeah.
I just leave that, in general.
Okay.
At the rest of the oversight, I'll just say something. I have, I guess, questions or something. But I heard Mike say, you know, we have the nurses, right, that work one-on-one, and then we have our nurse in our nurses room, right? And so if one of our nurses are out sick, then we can look at her to see who can help us. I want to put in perspective here that your nurse that's not working one-on-one is taking care of every student, and not only in Creswell Elementary School, every student middle at the high school. Plus, she's doing the diabetic readings for your diabetic kids, plus she's giving insulin. So if she's pulled from that position, who is giving your diabetic kids their insulin? Who is helping with the kid who fell off the play structure and fractured? No, she can't because she's tapping every 2 hours, so she's suctioning. So that's not really, I know that that's a resource that people say that we use often, but that's not a resource that's attainable to use for coverage for the nurses who are one-on-one with their students.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
That actually leads me to one more long-term question.
Okay.
I don't see that. I know Springfield for sure. I don't know about 4J also has a pool of nurses they bring in to do diabetic care.
They do it separately.
Yeah. Okay, and I don't know if there is a good or bad method to do that, but have we looked at those overall models and what makes the most sense here?
We do have that, the one that we're talking about is in the office to provide that there.
Can I speak personally? I think that, it's hard to grasp maybe exactly what's going on at the school. I think that especially not having a district nurse on, Melissa is contract, like for administrative duties, she's not in that. I can tell you that is not happening, that from a parent's point of view is not in the cards. And from my experience, it seems to be Eugene does employ, 4J employs LPNs who that's all they do, blood sugars, insulin. That's why their wage is so low. Because they come in and work short shifts. And they have 13 district RNs. So their LPNs are just like ancillary stuff. They're not doing the level of care that our nurses are. But also, if it comes down to like, say, somebody has an exposure, Melissa has an exposure, she can't take care of my child, AJ's in the health room, who's has to take care of diabetics, they're not gonna pull AJ, because those neurotypical kids' parents would throw a fit if you had 5 of them go to school. So it's way easier to send my kid and say, sorry, you can't go to school, and then it happens over and over and over, because there's still no contingency plan. So I get that it's like, it is hard, we're a small district, but I think that like realizing that our acuity is high and we have really experienced nurses. Katie is one of the most talented nurses right now. She's kept Natalie's kid alive at school. And she left because she couldn't feed her family on the wage. Like, you apply for one job and they're paying for $9 more an hour. And it sucks. And I get that we're a small district, but at the end of the day, we have to create some type of resolution, because I'm gonna tell you, these foster homes and these foster parents like myself and Natalie are not leaving. We love this district and we want our kids to be a part of it. And I don't think that's too much to ask, you know, and so somehow we have to figure out how to retain the nurses that we have, because like, you know, there's times where they've asked me, well, can't you just come with them? No, I can't, you know? And so it's kind of been a revolving thing the last few years, and my son is going into 5th grade, and we have got to get this figured out. And I know that it's a lot for like the board to, you know, money is everything, but at the same time, like, there actually isn't a resolve, because DHS, Kristen Anderson, is the DHS guardian to Natalie's children and mine. She only takes high needs kids. So she has been involved with, you know, things that have not gone well at Creswell School District. And kids who have not been well taken care of. And so it's hard when we're advocating because we have good people. And we want to keep them. But at the same time, finding a, you know, sustainable thing is like important to everybody. And so I don't know how, you know, if there's grant money we can get, if there's, you know, additional COVID funding, because that's another thing AJ is handling it. Where, you know, that's money that could be channeled to the health plan.
Sure.
So I think just trying to problem solve how we can figure out how to retain nurses is just such a, I have a fear that like my kid is not gonna be able to go to school like normal kids again, just like last year. And so it's hard. I want to figure out a resolution, and it breaks my heart to think we lost somebody like Katie, you know, because it's hard, especially for these complex kids. You're discussing an agency that has been the past, and the problem is that these kids are so complex that an agency doesn't want to send a nurse out to do 3 weeks of training to maybe be called, you know, at the drop of a hat when another nurse is unable to come in, and they're paying their staff $38 an hour. So what are they billing the school? Usually double. So when we take that into account, like, how can we rectify that situation? You know, there's got to be a resolve somewhere, because the acuity in this district is not going away. And, you know, Kristen said to me earlier, well, can we just pull them from Creswell and send them to a different school district? Well, that doesn't work, because the home district is responsible for providing nursing support. So I guess it's unfortunate that so many of us live in Creswell, but we've got to figure out, you know, we all love this district. So you know, and I don't know, as far as like Melissa Cole, that's an administrative undertaking. She's not doing hands-on one-on-one care.
No.
Thank you. So I don't know if that's another thing, looking at, you know, we're saving, how much money are we saving this year with her not being on regular staff?
Thank you for that. Any other questions on the contract line? So, yeah.
I have a question. Does Lane ESB, do they provide any support as far as helping or nurses?
Not for nursing here.
Are any of you guys work with them on the?
Well, my child's in their class, so they provide all the support specialists like PT, OT, speech, but they have never provided nursing care.
I just wondered, I wasn't. And I'm just wondering, I thought they had services like that. I mean, if nothing else, we need some backup.
Yeah, so it was,
Okay, so I'm quickly looking because I'm having trouble with my iPad pulling up the agreement. The decision that is in front of us tonight is approval or not yet approval of the agreement. So we can choose to approve the agreement. And I'm trying to look if some of the questions that we've asked Mike, if they're outside of the agreement, you can make a motion to approve the agreement and still instruct Mike to come back with additional information on some of the things, like I've got the items that Candace had asked for. If those items are in the agreement, which I was trying to quickly look through, we could table this or move this for action until the next month and direct Mike and Debbie and Mike to go back and work through this. To either bring back the same agreement, adjust, or look into things. So we have an action decision. If you guys need just a moment to do that, I'm gonna take just a quick moment to see what's in here versus the follow-up items that Candace was asking.
It won't be in there, it's in the
It won't
job
be in there.
description.
It's in the job description. Okay, I should have just asked you. I think that's a pretty short.
What is the proposal of changes?
Yes.
Totally agrees, Trish.
Okay, so it looks like what is in the agreement is essentially the financial aspects of the agreement, which includes the wage, and that I understand will be at a minimum a 13% increase over 3 years. And if the folks are eligible for steps, then it would be 19% over 3 years. Plus additional benefits. Because that's wages, that would not include the insurance piece that I'm seeing in here,
As
a
well as,
longevity step.
and PERS increases each year as well.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's really non-negotiable. That's kind of mandated by the state. So thank you for letting me look at that. The operational pieces that Candace has asked for, that can still be an instruction for Mike to bring those back. And so then you can choose to either hold the full contract for that or approve the financial side of the contract for that.
Macy, does it have on there somewhere where that, 8% the first year, where that puts them at hourly rate?
Mike, what
Yeah, it's
is
in the
8%?
contract. So they. LPN, so the step one, which is 24, 25, 22, 23. Their step one wage will be $22 an hour. Their step 10 wage is $28.71, and longevity step 15 is $29.57. $30. That's good.
Can I ask one question?
Sure. We don't have you registered for public comment, so can you please give us your name?
My name is Neil Bialis.
No, thank you.
It's just for general knowledge on the steps. Is it with Creswell, step 1 to get to step 10? Does it take you 10 years every year?
A step a year.
And I'm
So
assuming
it
if,
takes you an LPN, for instance, 10 years to go from $22 to $28.
Depends on where they come in on the salary schedule.
yeah, so you
If
wouldn't,
they started at step 1.
If they
you
were
would come
new
in with
or-
no experience, right? Step one is no experience.
Thank you.
Okay. You guys, yeah,
If I may, I'm real comfortable with these contracts, except I really think we ought to review this a little bit, get some more information and really take a look at this, make sure we're competitive. If there's a way that, I don't know if we need to approve everything up this section and then come back and just approve the whole thing next month, but I think we need to look into this. For, one, for wages, and two, for backup and things like that. I really think we need to, we've got several years ago, we were checking the the fire superintendent and I and Tim went out to Junction City, and we were trying to find out why their graduation rate was so much higher than Creswell. And one of them is they have a real small percentage of special needs kids. And that's just something we've got, and we've got to do that right. So I think we need to do this. I really like the way the whole thing was done, the way Mike looked at it, and as far as being competitive salaries and the whole package. But I think we need to review the LPN nursing situation.
It's the LPNs and RNs.
Okay, my preference would be to keep the contract whole, to not try to break it up into two. So if you want to make a motion, either table the whole contract or then approve the whole contract, because it gets messy. If you later discover that one thing impacts another and we've already approved that piece.
And then I'll move the table the contract till next month. My second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Does that affect salaries from starting school?
It does.
It will, and our group can decide a retroactive date. That's typically what I've seen in other negotiations in the past, is if we take longer, we can either say it is retroactive at the beginning of the school year, as if this normally would be, or whatever the date would be. So that can be something that the group can look at. We can ask them to do that.
This is good. Contract that would be good. You get one July. The contract is from 1 July to 30, so this, whatever we decide will be in July.
That would be a contractual clause that we'll ask Mike and Debbie and Mike to take a peek at and make sure that that makes sense.
I have a question. Is there a reason why the LPNs aren't on their own like contract, since it's such a hard job to fill? Or
No reason, except with smaller districts, just administratively, we tend to group like
Sure.
together. And Mike already indicated the confidential group is probably pretty diverse of all of
Yeah.
our different groups. So what I heard him describe when they were looking through that is he was trying to pull apart different,
right,
to be able to look at market.
sure.
So. Okay. All right, so we've got a motion on the table. It's been made and seconded. Any other conversation or question about that motion? Okay, all in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you for that. All right, thank you, nurses and families for coming. I appreciate the public comment and the input. Mike Johnson will be in touch with whatever questions or process he's gonna run. Okay.
And a comment, please.
Sure.
I'm Chris and Amy's husband. And
Can I get your last name?
Matthews.
Thank you.
I'm a retired Marine. I was rated for a career. And the situation I'm hearing right now is that you're trying to make comparisons to other places, but there's no comparison to be had because you're the first on that. And so unfortunately, it's a struggle for you guys, and I appreciate and I applaud everything you're doing today to try to do the right thing. But unfortunately, you're stuck in a really bad situation because you can't look to other people to make the decisions or help you make those decisions for what's good for your school district, because you're an anomaly. You're the first one there. You're the only one doing it this way. And so taking that into account, I appreciate what you're all doing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay. All right. You guys are welcome. I mean, you can stay and listen to the rest if you're interested. You're also welcome to get back to your evening. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I would like to say that, I admire your courage for coming in, and I respect your opinion. And what you're explaining to us is important. And I didn't take it lightly when I looked through this first time. But I truly understand what you're communicating. And I appreciate you taking the time to come down and do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right.
And this won't show up on YouTube.
Oh, it's
put
recorded.
it
It's
on
out there
YouTube.
for
No, I'm
somebody.
just saying the crazy. The Virginia mom. It's like, no.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for coming.
And board, I know I strayed from our public comment procedure, but thank you for letting me do that. I felt like the issue is important and we had families here, so I used the board policy, board chair can, deviate if needed, so I appreciate your flexibility with that. Okay. All right. Okay, so comment, agenda's on the other side. Okay, all right, so we have got that confidential done and tabled. All right, so we're gonna move back up to what was number one. List of compensated committees. So we need to approve that. Can I get a motion on this one?
Move that we approve the list of compensated committees presented.
Okay, any questions on that one? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, fantastic, that is unanimous. Okay, quick discussion on OSB annual convention. It is November 11 through 13. That is in person, Marilyn. Is there an option for virtual attendance?
They're going to get the information out within the next couple of weeks.
Okay,
There wasn't anything, I looked to see if there was a flyer or anything. Okay, so in the next couple of weeks, so if anyone's interested, let me know, so I have that. No?
So my first question is, the last thing, why is it always on November 11th?
I don't know. My question too.
because most boards are working, and if they hold the convention over, it's less time off work. Right, they look for a holiday weekend to hold it, because most of us have day jobs. So if it's on a Friday, they don't get a lot of, okay. Well, I actually asked that question a while ago, and they hold the convention over a day.
Go, but I'm not going.
Yeah, for your volunteer piece, that's tough.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Marilyn, do you have a date by which we need to notify you? Do you know that yet?
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay, all right, so this is just look at our calendars, let you know when we know, and we'll bring more information back. Okay,
Our registration is being open, they don't know when it's gonna be, so.
got it. Yep. Okay, all right. Next item is approve the superintendent's contract. So. Mr. Johnson, do you want to do, would you like Debbie or Mike to do a summary of that, or are you okay doing that?
I'm on.
Okay,
So again, at the direction of the board, I collaborated with Director Anderson and Director Wetterson on the discussion items of my contract, and we came to agreement. They agreed to bring this to the board, and now it's in front of the board for approval. The process that I used was looking at comparisons out there in districts like ours and small districts within Lane County. My salary is consistently below the average. I'm not asking to get above average or anywhere near the top of what of the 8 districts that I use in comparison. But I've asked for what has been already provided in the COLA 4% a year. I didn't go with a higher market comparison salary. I went with the 4% in mind.
any questions on that contract? Okay, can I have a, what that?
I said, that's pretty straightforward. I move to approve the superintendent's contract. Second.
Thank you. Any further questions?
But not.
I saw one, okay, I was gonna say, I saw one brewing.
I
Candace.
do too. I can't help it too. My nature, just went. This isn't a thing that I don't think we should do. I just don't really understand the rolling 3-year approving every year.
So.
I'm not saying don't do it. I just don't understand.
Okay, so if the board wants to retain me for 3 years, we have a 3-year rolling. Administrators typically have 3 years. All your administrators have a 3-year rolling contract. Every year it's renewed, but by law, they have a 3-year period of time. What beyond probationary, once they're on a permanent status, so to speak. They have a 3-year, if there's a concern that I have as an administrator, then I talk with them in whatever year it is. And from that point on, there is 3 years to make improvements on what I want to see by law. So they have the year identify it, the second year identify it and make a plan or what have you. And then the second year to substantiate that they have been successful or not successful. And then in the third year, that's the determination or the determining year of whether or not they're going to be continuing from that point on. And superintendents, it's most common for them to have a 3-year rolling contract. However, the board can say, we don't want 3 out of you, we want to reduce it to 2. And then I decide whether or not that's going to be okay.
Okay. So
Not
when
that I
we-
can argue and say 3 is whether or not that's, I would say for 2, but if it just keeps growing, then that's one of us decide to change that.
Okay, so when we hear from other superintendents, as we went through a whole looking for superintendent process a few years ago, and they say my contract is ending. That means either the board chose not to add to renew it for that 3-year rolling calendar, and that's just kind of a flag. I won't say what a red flag, a flag to know what the next step.
Or they could have mutually agreed that that superintendent wants to leave the district and is not going to continue on the 3-year contract.
Thank you.
And,
That's very.
And like that.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor, raise your hands. That is unanimous. All right, thank you. Okay, and last one, our agreement with the administrators.
Okay. So again, with this group, as with the other groups, I wanted to achieve a balanced approach to our discussions and bargaining session with our administrative group and our confidential supervisor group. Those are discussions because it's not a bargaining. They are not in collective bargaining. It's a discussion. It's what they want, it's what we want, and then it's what the board says to give them. I'm not to be crashing,
Yeah.
but that's how it works with those two
Yeah.
groups. And then the other 2 groups are in collective bargaining by law. And so with this group, I wanted a balanced approach. And the goal was to have them on a similar agreement as we have with the certified, our other licensed group of this teacher. Our certified folks, our teachers, counselors, and those TSPC licensed folks. They are TSPC licensed as well. So there's a lot of commonalities there. I took into consideration their request. And then I did my research on what they were requesting. I did look to what would be within the means of the district budget. I did a market analysis to do some comparisons out there with districts our size across the state, and then what is happening in Lane County, especially with our neighboring districts. Eugene, well, I looked at Springfield, I didn't look at Eugene. I looked at Springfield, Cottage Grove, Key Hill, Fern Ridge, I pulled in because of their size. And what I found is that we don't have, well, we're competitive. I wasn't out to set a salary schedule where we are the highest paid district in Lane County for its administrators, but one where we, to be competitive, we have a really solid group in our administrative review and our confidential professional and supervisory group as well. But we want to keep them, and so we need to be up there competitive. We're not, Springfield is ahead of us. Of course, it's a large district and a large budget. And with that large district comes other things, but as far as districts that are lesser than Bethel, Eugene, and Springfield, we are competitive. And so that's why I'm bringing the 4% COLA increase in here rather than a market adjustment in their salary. Want to do well, but we're not out to be the leading district in compensation. That's not where we want to put ourselves in the market, but we want to treat and value our employees well. And then I looked across the district at our agreements with other employee groups, in particular with the insurance. And we had a very huge discrepancy with this group was the lowest paid group, or lowest compensated group with the insurance cap. I'm not sure why. Maybe it had to do with the former group and not having children, or, you know, they had empty nesters or something, I don't know, for years. But, yeah, but it was a huge gap to cover. And so we brought in an increase in their insurance coverage, but not enough to get them equal to the certified group for the confidential supervisory professional, which were the highest. They had the highest insurance cap of all the groups, was the confidential and supervisory group. But in 2 years' time, they'll be close, a lot closer. So rather than a $50 cap increase, we went to 100, so they could catch up to the other groups in the insurance cap.
Okay, any other questions for Mike on that administrator's agreement?
Oh, one other thing, by the way, I might add, they did not ask for a market analysis in their salary. What they asked for was equity in insurance cap.
Okay, any other questions? I'm looking at you, Natalie, seeing if there's anything brewing. in there. For the Candace, yeah, sorry.
love if
I
Natalie
just
came
looked- I
back.
just looked at Natalie to go,
still-
she's still there.
I love,
Sorry.
This is also not in disagreement. I just don't see, and maybe help me understand, I don't know how there's time off works for administrators. I mean, it's not teachers, but I kind of read a little bit about confidential staff. Other than sick leave and personal leave, how does it?
So if you look to their salary schedule,
Mhm.
you'll see in the
They
column,
chuckled, there is no time.
you will see 220, 230, 240, or 260, something like that, 235. That's the days they work a year, so the other days they're off.
So they follow like, they pretend, they really get it, like the month of July off, but they're all shaking their head. So I don't know, but that's the intention-ish.
They do, but they can take additional assignments if we have them. We'll compensate them if they work during that.
Tomorrow.
No, tomorrow they're on contract.
Just wondering.
We're already back. I'll
Okay.
go see.
Thank you. Precious Stargo. Okay, thank you very much.
So, anything you want to know?
Okay, if not, I need a motion on the table.
I move to approve the administrator's agreement proposal for 2022-2023.
I'll second that.
Gonna second it too. I love it already. Got it. Any other questions? All right, all in favor, raise your hands. That is unanimous. Fantastic. All right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Okay, trustee reports. Debbie, you want to start? What you been doing?
Been meeting with Mike about.
A lot.
Yes,
Um,
thank you for that,
Yeah.
by the way.
that's pretty much been it. And then I did go to the World Track and Night over at high school. That was super fun. That was a fun thing. Other than that, that's it. Thanks so much. Yep.
I met with Mike last week. He reminded me.
I met with Mike too.
I think that's think
Oh.
that's it.
We met and talked for our one-on-one annual, but we also toured.
Oh,
Well,
yes,
I
we
told
did.
you
We
that
did.
we toured.
Tour the grant school different times, and it was amazing. I just would mention that. Because I was gonna say earlier, it's like the difference between the first week that Mike and I were there and the difference when I came back, I had a little bit, I was a little scared. This week. I was like, there's no way. And then the second week was much better. Still a little worried about that stage area, but I think it'll be fine. It's good. It's extra space.
It's fine.
It's fine. It looks way better than the first time because it was a little wonky at the top the first time, but now. It was a little like.
That's all I have.
Okay.
I attended the Finnish athletic team welcome. I had a superintendent meeting one-on-one, and I did the board evaluation.
Thank you for everybody doing the board evaluation. That's good. Thank you for reminding us. All right, Mark?
And one-on-one with the superintendent and thank you for the instruction.
Mike?
I went to the film reception and then I spent many hours watching those kids throw those big heavy steel.
The hammer?
balls out of the
Yeah.
side. That was one of the coolest things I think's happened in this town in a long time. I met one of the young ladies was a, what they call it, speed walk or whatever, there at my place. Then a little while later, she was in street clothes and I hollered at her. She came over and we talked for a while. And she said that we're really taking, I asked her how we were treating them. And she said, you guys are doing very good. So I talked to Lauren Robinson and I said, invite them back for next year for the Street Fun Thing Classic, because that's kind of how it all
Yeah.
started. So
Cool.
went to a Lane SB meeting. And then I was involved, as rest of you, there's several union meetings. And if I had my way, I'd love to file a complaint against our friend, the one friend, union rep, and I don't know if that's possible. I don't know who you'd send paperwork to. But I think those went, from my perspective, I thought they were really well. I thought Mike did things right, and I think the reception from ones I talked to went really well, and
Good.
I think it's pretty good deal for everybody. The other thing, we got a tour of the elementary school under construction, and I can't believe that the first school got the no installation.
Gotta be an old school, right?
I just had to shake my head going through it, but it'll be sealed and painted and really nice when the kids come back. And Mike, did you talk to anybody about you giving them a tour out like Doug or
Yeah.
his name escapes me, the tire shop guy.
I did,
Bill Spencer and Dave
Bill
Strand.
and-
Yeah, he walked him through.
If we're thinking about it,
I did reach out to them.
I think they ought to.
We hear through the grapevine. He's been showing people around.
Okay, good, because I think they need to see what's going on and what needs to be improved.
Yeah, yeah, I heard from Doug and then he also showed Dave Strand through as well. They were
And long,
in lawn. That's right.
and Bill is on deck. We tried to hook up his schedule and my schedule didn't allow it, so we're gonna try to put something together next week. I think that helped for them. He, by the way, when we did the last strategic planning session, Bill did bring up facilities, and facilities became one of those things talked about within the design team, and so I wanted them to see what we were doing to improve our school.
Does anybody know the lawn that's Robertson? I own 20 bucks for a couple of t-shirts.
We do, and we'll say it after the meeting, so it's not on public record. Okay, all right. I don't want to give out addresses on public record, please. Since we're YouTubing, I don't know how appreciating public citizens would be of that. Just manage that. Share information afterwards, please. Okay. All right, we're gonna keep moving through. Technology and facilities. Any questions that Mike didn't already cover on the seismic update? Thank you for managing everything for us, Joel.
I have one question.
You're welcome.
I've been going by the stage to see how they've been doing on it. By the way, they poured the slab in there, I mean, the walls are going up. It's coming together, quicker than what was explained to me 3 weeks ago. But I'm looking to see where the stage wall is gonna come down. And that section is going to become floor level. So it can join into the cafeteria, but I don't see that they've taken that bottom out. They are gonna take that bottom section out, right?
Yes. Yeah, they are.
Well, they got
We
something
are preparing our next
up
step.
there that looks like there's gonna be a stairwell going in.
That
there.
is a
I'm
high
like,
jump or
yeah.
the hurdle.
But it is really cool the way they're doing that, but yeah, Joel, whatever you have to add to it, Joel, that beyond what I was said, or, please do.
I actually don't really have much more to add. You pretty much covered it pretty good. Thank you for that.
Okay.
yeah.
Any questions for Julie? Communications report. I will say the comment around the Parent Square app trying to get, like, what I read was, we're gonna start all using one app for communication. That will be fantastic, because it seems like there's an app for every activity, every grade, every teacher, like there's different preferences. So if we're gonna start getting that onto one, that will be appreciative of parents.
Yeah, I'm sure as the process rolls out, we'll bring it along and be able to do, but I know that was the goal and what had been expressed, and certainly taking advantage of the technology that's available to us, that's our hope.
Awesome. Thank you for
course.
keeping that a goal. Right. Anything else?
No, but I don't think this is.
Yeah, there's not one attached. We'll get an update in September.
One business.
Yeah.
Question.
Sure. You can ask
love it.
any.
I know, I love it.
But tell me when it's time. I don't want to go.
No, it's fine. Okay, yeah.
So I've had a number of questions and I had no idea the answer to this. And it reminded me about the Finnish athletes. So there's been it was stated somewhere that we were getting a leasing fee
Yeah.
for Finnish athletes. And I've been asked a number of times, where in the budget did that go? And I didn't know. the answer.
So we did, assess a lease agreement with them. And the agreement was, on some days it was $1,000 a day, other days it was 600. Joel, is that right? 100 on.
Yes.
the days, 1,000 on the other.
Yeah, it was after about 5 days into the remaining 5 days of the event, we didn't have as many athletes on site.
So we reinvested that money into the track facility. And we put a new runway on the long jump. Runway. It was not safe. We couldn't have our kids on it. Those athletes couldn't work on it or anything. I mean, we just told Joel just reached down and there was a wrinkle and he pushed the wrinkle and it peeled off. And so,
Way to go, Joel. Break our long jump.
so we went to work on that and that was quite expensive to resurface that runway. But that was the money that we just recycled it, reinvested it into the facilities out there.
Thank you very much.
I'm cruising right along for time, but if you guys have questions, by all means, come. Creswell report. Summer school looked great. Yeah, except for heat at the end where you had to end early.
It's a fully air-conditioned building right now. Well, half of it is.
The breeze just blows right through, right?
There's no one, it's fully ventilated.
Fully ventilated.
All right, any questions for Julie on the middle school report? And we don't have a high school report, but Jenny's here, so if you have any questions on high school stuff, feel free.
I give you preliminary summer school stuff, but we don't have everything out of it. I'm still waiting to get done for the kids who work this summer, but we had 30 kids that signed up for summer school. 5 did not show up. And, I'm still working on, since I've been back going through a Celis and seeing the number of credits that was earned, but, of those 39 were incoming freshmen who did an algebra course with Gary this summer, so that they are going to be ready for geometry starting in the fall.
Great. And the question I am getting from both of my children and all of their friends, when are schedules going to be ready?
Oh, yeah, not until preschool starts. God bless them. Yeah, we are still adjusting the schedule slightly. We have a couple of math classes to add into our schedule with the addition of a halftime math teacher, which happened after we did all of our forecasting. And so, once we get all of our teachers in place and make those adjustments, then we'll be able to do that. I also don't believe that our health ops, athletic trainer was in the original schedule during the hiring, or because the hiring came after, so we just have some additional staff to add so that we can add courses in.
Great, that's the answer I told them, closer to school, but I
Yeah.
don't believe mom. I'll say the principals who told me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have them check with their parents. No. Registration is open, for the high school because we opened, registration for sports, and so a lot of parents are trying to just get both taken care of at once.
Sure.
But you can see your schedule.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, anything else? Did I get any order?
I have one thing, that would
Yeah.
have one thing, it's for Jenny.
Sure.
In September or October. Could we see the numbers of kids who received college credit last year and passed the AP test?
AP tests, yes, and, you had the fall term college credit one, so I'll add that into the numbers that I get for the spring term. Yeah. Absolutely.
Great question. Okay, please remember our work session on August 31st. We'll go over board evaluation. At 6 p.m. in person. Yay. I can hear you.
Man, this is cool.
Absolutely.
Joel.
I'm not available August 31st, but you'd have, the boardroom won't be available.
Okay. Can we still be here? Can we arrange to be here? We don't need a work session to be virtual. We will not
No.
have any public comment, so
We
we'll
do.
just be, what?
Well,
We have to be virtual to show
We
it.
just
Even
don't,
with no
we
public
just
comment?
don't, we just won't have public comment on the agenda.
Oh,
There's no public comment because it's a work session, but it has to be,
It has to be recorded.
the public can
Thank you
come
for
and
the
watch it,
clarification.
so they have to be able to be.
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. Okay,
But this room would be available.
We're all
yes.
learning.
August
31st.
31st.
But
It's not,
You know,
you guys. know.
yeah.
This is
No,
a-
I didn't know the time, I'm thinking about the room.
Oh,
6.
okay, now you have to come. Okay. If we need to adjust the date or anything, just let me know and I can work in Vince, but that's when he was available, so.
Okay.
It works. Okay, all right. We're adjourned. Yeah.
I'm not-